Yuki puts his arms up and Zach grabs his wrists and then
Swings them around like
Yeah.
uppies.
Yeah.
Some sports are designed to mobilize people of all different shapes and sizes. Usually it's the sports with distinct positions. Kickers don't look anything like nose tackles, and you can usually tell who's the shortstop and who's the designated hitter. Sports with less defined roles tend to select for similar bodies. If every player on the field has the same rules, the same responsibilities and opportunities, they can be quite similar in age, size, and build. Every basketball player's job is pretty much the same if you really think about it, so you can build a team without all that much physical diversity. And yet, every once in a while, even as positionally fluid a sport as basketball gives us this.
Oh, it's me and Seth.
Which is which?
I'm the 17, obviously. And you, with a lot of surgery, are number 14.
You don't know what I look like.
I'm the basketballs.
And we're all so happy for you.
Yeah, great job.
Okay, guys, get serious for a second. What we're looking at here is two Memphis Grizzlies 2024 rookies. We have Zach Edey on the left, who is 7'4", 305 pounds.
Tall drink of water.
Yeah. And on the right, we have Yuki Kawamura, who is 5'8", 159.
Average drink of water. It all kind of blurs together for you.
My height, kind of.
Yeah, what are you,
I'm like the
6'6"?
perfect average of the two of them.
You are about average height for an NBA player. Yeah.
Well, right now you're as tall as Zach.
I'm 4 times as big as they are right now, but in real life, yeah.
But yeah, these guys are teammates, and you are looking here at, for the 24-25 season, one of the tallest players in the NBA, if not the history of the game, and one of the shortest players in the NBA, if not the history of the game. And they are recreating a legendary and even more extreme height differential photo from, I think, 1988 of Manute Bol and
right.
Muggsy Bogues on the Washington Bullets. Which makes you wonder about the basketball thing. My theory is that in the original, they were like, oh, you guys are really different in height. How do we show that? And the only thing they had laying around was basketballs.
They played in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was there where they were still measuring basketball players by basketballs.
Right, yeah.
It's like horses being
with hands.
20 apples high.
Yeah.
That's what the metric system is, right?
Yeah,
It's
right,
just basketballs.
Yeah.
These two people on paper have the same job.
They have the same job.
You
Yeah.
go to the same office.
They not only do they go to the same office, but they have the same role. They are a basketball player. There are no quarterbacks. There are no designated hitters.
Mm-hmm.
There are no kickers. These are just basketball players. Their jobs and their responsibilities and the rules around them are identical. Get the ball in the basket, stop the other team from getting the ball in the basket.
Mm-hmm.
All the variation between players in basketball is organic. Like, we have evolved over time. Point guards like Yuki Kawamura, a player can be small as long as they're really good at passing. And gigantic people like Zach Edey, who can be slow and less agile as long as they're deft around the basket, really tall, really dominant. It was never written into the rules of basketball that, like, these guys can only do this, these guys can only stand here, these guys can only use this kind of equipment. Everybody plays the same way until people strategically decide to do different. There are so many cases where in basketball that ends up with guys kind of being versatile and all the same height, all the same size, whatever. But then you also get this like extreme differentiation. And I think that's very beautiful. And I thank you for coming to my TED Talk about basketball.
I do. Question. Hi,
Yeah.
Ryan. First time.
Tall guy in the
Hello,
front. Yeah.
Ryan Simmons. First time, long time. So this is actually a question I've always sort of had about basketball
Sure.
and have maybe been
Safe space.
too embarrassed to ask. The positions, they are not like you just said in football. Quarterback does a very specific thing. It's regulated by the rules. You can and cannot do certain things. And that means that certain body types work really well for those roles. That's not as true in basketball?
Correct. Yeah. No, that's worth talking through. In the NFL, for instance, like, there are eligible receivers.
Mm-hmm.
The positions in basketball, to answer your question, are concepts. There is no rule that differentiates a point guard from a center. There is no difference in responsibility between those two people. It's just strategic.
Is there a rule in basketball against one teammate throwing another teammate? Like, if Zach picked up Yuki, threw him up to block a shot, allowable?
I honestly don't know.
I think I have a sort of a piggyback question on that I've always asked myself.
Can they
piggyback?
Okay, so I guess I have two questions that I've always asked as a tall person. What are short people good for? In life, but also in basketball?
Evading smoke.
Sure, yeah. Surviving that first scene of Ghost Ship.
Yeah, fuck, I didn't
Where
know
the
we
wire
had,
comes across.
I didn't know we had Randy Newman on the panel today.
I thought he was doing
Short
Jiminy
people.
I
Glick.
did a
Oh,
little
God.
Jiminy Glick.
Oh, damn it. That is, yep, okay.
No, you're a short person. Tell me what short people are good for.
That's pretty good.
That's a good glick.
But for real, what are short people good for?
Here's a good example. Yuki Kawamura is short for a point guard,
Sure.
right? Like he
Yeah.
is not just the shortest player on the floor. He's one of the shortest players in the league. Yuki Kawamura is one of the best passers in the entire NBA. That's why he's on an NBA roster.
Okay.
He has really incredible court vision, really incredible timing, and just a very deft touch passing. And defensively, I would say he has an ability to be a pest and to like get under people, interrupt the flow of dribbling and passing because of his size and because he works really hard.
Sure.
You know, the sort of like stereotypes are that if you're big, you can get away with not being as skilled, as evidenced by, I don't know, Shaq being one of the worst free throw shooters in human history and yet being dominant. Whereas if you're small, you got to be very, very good.
Sure, yeah.
I looked around for other extreme differences between athletes, either as teammates or opponents. I was curious about the biggest weight difference between football players. I didn't find a clear historic answer. I'm happy to take it from someone in the comments if they can find it. But I did notice that on the 2010 Washington football team, kick returner Brandon Banks weighed 150 pounds, and he played with Anthony Bryant, a defensive tackle who was 360 pounds measured that year. So a 210-pound difference
How do you
between
think they
two
arrange
teammates.
them on the flight for away games?
Lap. Yeah.
Just
Well, because
combine
then
into
you don't have to
one.
pay for another seat.
You don't
if
have to
do
pay
it.
for another seat, and then
Yeah.
it's not imbalanced. Sure.
Yeah. I think my favorite photos of extreme height differences in the context of the sport were when Ronald Torreyes was on the Yankees and was Aaron Judge's teammate. Ronald Torreyes being, I don't know, maybe 5'5", 5'6", and Aaron Judge is like 6'8" or something. You know, when they would celebrate a double play to end an inning or whatever, and they would run up and like he would jump to do a high five. I think that's great. You gotta
good.
play into it if you're teammates with this much of a height difference.
Yeah. Similarly, I think Zach and Yuki should come up with their own signature celebration.
What are you thinking?
Yuki puts his arms up and Zach grabs his wrists and then
Swings them around like
Yeah.
uppies.
Yeah, basically uppies is exactly what I'm talking about.
Uppies would be very good. Or if Zach just does the like old school bully thing of just arm to the forehead of Yuki.
Oh, and then he's kind of like windmill
And then they're like,
arms.
haha, just Josh.
Just Josh, bring it in.
This is cool that even in a sport like basketball where there is not necessarily differentiation that you can still get this. Because yeah, if you were to show a kicker and a lineman next to each other, you'd be like, yeah, obviously, like I know they're teammates, but they play positions that might as well be different sports. And that's not the case in basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, breaking sports down by what is your job is very interesting.
Yeah, there's a spectrum of, I would put basketball at, I mean, there's individual sports, I guess, at the far end of positional fluidity where it's like, if you can do it, you can do it. But then of team sports, basketball, everyone has the same job on paper. On the opposite end would be maybe American football of there are very specific rules about positional designations and what you can do. Or lacrosse with different equipment for different people. I know like volleyball has some rules about different positions and that definitely dictates like what sized person does what.
Right.
Baseball is fun because on offense, everyone's job is basically the same. You know, you change the batting order, but on defense, they could not be more different.
Golf is good. The same job and it's solo.
Yeah.
So you get a real crazy variation there, I think. What other sport can you have someone
I mean,
like
tennis is
John Daly
right.
on one end of the spectrum and then
yeah, and they are
pick literally anyone with
John
better
Daly
physique.
and Rory McIlroy are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think
man of speaking.
You can extend that to like there are golfers in their 90s and there are golfers
Yes, that's true.
who are 9 years old.
Are there
Name
golfers that are
one
9?
9-year-old golfer.
Y'all haven't seen Lil Tiger Woods?
Some sports, individual sports in particular, iron out differences in size and stature with weight classes. Like I was thinking about this and, in tennis, for instance, Ivo Karlovic was 6'10" and he would play guys who were, 5'5".
I was really hoping you were about to say tennis used to have
Tennis
weight
has weight
classes, which would be like, I would watch heavyweight tennis. Here's a bunch of people who are just 200-mile-per-hour serves, like let them juice.
Lots of injuries.
You guys
Lots of injuries.
You never seen sumo doubles? It's incredible.
What would be the best sport to watch the most extreme matchup take place? Think boxing? That's like Punch Out, basically.
The thing that jumps to mind is I am really happy when I see a clip where it's one massive robot and one very nimble robot in BattleBots.
Sure.
And it's
a BattleBots.
And it's like, here is this really small, speedy robot that you're not going to be able to flip, which is always how you win. Going on just like the Crusher, where it's like on robot anabolic steroids.
I mean, this is basically if you're watching Planet Earth and like, you know, a bunch of ants take down like a whole raccoon or whatever.
Right.
I know.
Right.
I feel like that specific example does not
No.
happen.
It's great. It's great. It's great.
Hey, thanks for watching our newest series, Reframe. If you're into Secret Base and you like what we do, might I recommend signing up for our Patreon? The link is in the description, and for $5 a month, you get John Boyce's series Pretty Good when they come out, our exclusive podcast, The Annex, extra features, and a whole lot more. And if you sign up for our $10 a month Top Secret Agent tier, you also get your name in the credits of our videos like this, on top of a bunch of other cool stuff. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And of course, as always, make sure you smash that like and subscribe right here on YouTube. And if you liked this video, you can check out another episode of Reframe here or one of our other videos here.